Modern pigeon racing exacts a lot of effort on the part of the pigeon, but also on the part of the fancier. If results fail to materialize, if a good condition is absent, if the pigeons don't look at all well, then it is high time to do something about it. For instance, consult the veterinarian. Finding out the real reason for these bad performances. That's what it's all about. Health problems are the most important cause. Everyone agrees that sick pigeons or infected pigeons perform poorly. Fortunately, the veterinary medicine has devoted a lot of attention to the racing pigeon in the last 2 decades. New discoveries were realized and a whole lot of experience was acquired. Let us examine together what can all go wrong with the health of our winged friends. The veterinarian first looks at the global image of the pigeon. He informs himself on the behavior and the syndromes present on the loft and finally moves on to the actual examination. In this film, we shall make a list of the principal pigeon diseases. We shall put them on the screen one by one. We shall examine and discuss them. Trichomonas is the most common infection in racing pigeons. This infection is very well known to the pigeon fancier. Trichomonas is caused by a unicellular parasite called Trichomonas galenae. These Trichomonas parasites are found in the throat, in the crop and in the esophagus. One can detect it, among others, by the presence of a large quantity of mucus fluid in the throat. In acute cases, one discovers yellow, cheese-like growths in the throat cavity. These are mostly found on young pigeons. Especially, the young birds with a Trichomonas infection show clear signs of general ill-being. How is it now that Trichomonas is so widespread in pigeon populations? For what concerns young pigeons, it is the parents which are the most important source of contamination. The infection is transferred in feeding the youngsters. The pigeons may also be infected by drinking out of a shared fountain, out of roof gutters, or out of puddles. Direct contact with other infected pigeons in a shipping basket or on the loft can also mean the beginning of an infection. Which is the best way to establish a Trichomonas infection? To establish a diagnosis, one takes a sample of throat mucus, places it on a slide and examines it microscopically. The Trichomonas parasites are clearly recognizable. They are very mobile. We can observe each one individually in a mild contamination. In severe infections, they often hang together in bunches. Even in cases of mild infection by the Trichomonas parasite, one must consider treatment. Ronidazole preparations, such as Tricho Plus, qualify in such cases. A complete treatment takes 5 days. The solution should, however, be renewed every day. In cold weather, one doubles the dosage. Because the pigeon builds little or no resistance to Trichomonas, and the chance of a new infection remains high, the fancier also acts preventively. During the racing season, when the infection risks are much higher, we administer Tricho Plus for 1 to 2 days. Other periods of time to take preventive action are, among others, before coupling and when weaning the youngsters. Sometimes it is necessary to treat each pigeon against Trichomonas individually. In this case, it is better to use the preparation Trichocure, which also contains ronidazole. A single administration of 1 tablet gives sufficient result. Because prevention is better than cure, one takes the following precautionary measures. Always serve fresh, clean water. Don't allow lost pigeons on the lofts. Regularly treat preventively. Consult the veterinarian in time. Coccidiosis is a parasitical intestinal affection. just like in Trichomonas, the disease is provoked by a unicellular parasite. In mild coccidiosis infections, the pigeons seldom show severe symptoms, as is the case with, for example, chickens. The general condition of the pigeon, however, shall suffer. It is therefore recommendable to carry out regularly an examination of the droppings. In the lab, a sample with the droppings will be prepared and brought onto a microscopic slide. The sample can then be examined microscopically. If coccidiosis infection is present, one will notice round oocysts. The degree of infection is evaluated. Mild infections must not always be treated. Coccidiosis is often encountered on soiled lofts, which are themselves the seed of infection. Shipping baskets are also often infected with these oocysts. A coccidiosis infection appears likewise after drinking infected water from puddles or roof gutters. When the resistance level is low, such as following a hard competition in the racing season, coccidiosis problems will crop up. The coccidia will especially then multiply and attack several intestinal cells. On many occasions where pigeons are not entirely fit or have to cope with one or other ailment, an increase of coccidiosis oocysts is established in the droppings. A treatment with Cocci Plus is then recommended. Checking the droppings 14 days later will prove that no more coccidiosis oocysts are present. A strict loft hygiene will definitely decrease the risks of a coccidiosis infection. Scrapping the loft floor and the nesting boxes, as well as using the flame torch, are very effective. Aviaries should be floored with grating. Never feed on the floor. Sanitary measures are of enormous importance in pigeon racing. Here, the following principle applies. The drier the loft, the more difficult parasites can survive. Shipping baskets should be weekly, preferably before each transport, disinfected and provided with fresh litter. Worm infections still present a problem on numerous lofts. Just like coccidiosis, worm infections are also detected by microscopic examination of a sample of droppings. Worms are a menace to the health of the pigeon. Even though in cases of mild infection, the pigeons don't really look sick, the performances usually become inferior. There are various known worm species. The first in the row is the roundworm, also called ascaris. In roundworm infestations, large oval eggs are detected microscopically. In dissecting an infected pigeon, one can see when the intestine is cut open that living roundworms appear. The worm has a typical round shape and is approximately 4 to 5 centimeters long. Typical for severe worm infestations are the green slimy droppings. In general, the whole loft becomes infected. Other apparent symptoms are loss of weight and anemia. Another important worm species, often found in pigeons, is the hairworm or capillaria. This worm is very tiny and very difficult to see with the naked eye. Microscopically, however, it is quite perceptible. The hairworm is very harmful for the pigeon. It clings to the intestinal wall, sucks the blood and damages the intestine. Even though only one hairworm egg is found in a sample of droppings, it is absolutely necessary to administer a treatment to the whole loft. In hairworm infections, small, lemon-shaped eggs with two typical polar caps are visible. Sometimes hairworms as well as roundworms are simultaneously detected in one and the same pigeon, and in worse cases, coccidiosis is even established. A new, efficient and secure remedy against both worm species is Avicus. Avicus contains, as active component, Fabantal, which causes no side effects such as feather damage or nausea. It is advisable to treat all pigeons in the loft simultaneously, so as to avoid reinfections. The same sanitary measures should be applied as for coccidiosis control. Rare are the pigeon fanciers whose pigeons never have to cope with respiratory affections. Especially during the racing season, that is in the summer months, such problems crop up. Even in cases of mild infection, no favorable competition results can be expected. Pigeons who have to cope with respiratory problems certainly never attain a good condition. Important losses are also noticed. These respiratory affections are known to us under various names. Consider among others such affections as head disease, snot, dry snot, coryza, swollen heads, ornithosis, and even ornithosis complex. One of the most important dreaded respiratory affections is ornithosis. Ornithosis is provoked by a small bacteria, the Chlamydia psittaci. This bacteria can be identified by taking a sample from the eye. It is often thought that ornithosis limits itself to an infection of the respiratory tracts. This certainly isn't true. Internal organs also, such as the liver and the spleen, can be affected. Pigeons which are affected with ornithosis are drowsy, look swollen, have little appetite, have a poor plumage, lose weight, and produce watery green droppings. When young pigeons are involved, mortality may even result. One can recognize ornithosis externally through the following symptoms: watery eyes, dirty nasal cere, mucus discharge from the nostrils, throat inflammation, a swollen head, and often a difficult breathing with open beak. In severe cases, a rattling can be heard. Typical for an ornithosis infection is a one-sided inflammation of the eye membrane accompanied with heavy tearing. When dissection is performed, an enlarged liver and spleen are mostly established. It is a known fact that many pigeon lofts are practically continuously confronted with ornithosis. In such a dragging disease situation, the symptoms are never quite evident. The pigeons cannot be brought to an optimal condition. They perform poorly and losses are gigantic. When breeding in ornithosis situations, splendid results are also not to be expected. Infertility and a low percentage of hatching are then established. How can one now efficiently combat ornithosis? Tetracycline is still the best medication for treating ornithosis. From this group antibiotics, doxycycline is the most recommendable product for the treatment of man and animal. For pigeons, the preparation Ornicure was especially developed. It contains a high dosage of doxycycline. An ornithosis treatment is one of long duration. This is necessary to kill the germs present in the deep internal organs. To obtain a successful result, the treatment should be persevered for at least 4 to 6 weeks. If the treatment is stopped prematurely, the disease returns and the ornithosis problems are even stronger than before. Besides chlamydia, the pathogen of ornithosis, there are other bacteria and viruses responsible for respiratory problems in racing pigeons. These affections are often called the swollen head disease or coryza or snot. In most cases of infection, we observe inflammatory eyes, dirty nose sere and repeated sneezing. The pigeons scratch their ear, eye or nose with their foot and often shake their head. The plumes around the nose sere and the eyes stand erect. The plumage is no longer smooth and shiny, but feels dull. The mucous membrane of the throat, which is normally pink, becomes blue-red. The beak slit is mostly closed. The pigeons are gasping for breath, especially after physical exertion. In acute cases, the pigeon's eyes are half closed and the edge of the third membrane is visible. A coryza affection should be treated as rapidly as possible. Antibiotics are especially recommended. For these respiratory affections, it is also preferable to use Ornicure. To obtain maximal efficiency from an Ornicure treatment, a few supplementary measures must be taken, such as avoid using calcareous tap water, remove minerals and grit, do not participate in competitions during the treatment. The average duration of the treatment is 5 to 10 days. Relative to respiratory problems in racing pigeons, we would like to give you a few points of advice. Besides the administration of a treatment in the case of respiratory problems, attention should also be paid to the housing situation of the pigeons. A few prerequisites are: keep the loft dry, warm and free from draught. The front of the loft should preferably be facing southeast. Windows are bad insulators, and large window panes will make the loft sensitive to temperature fluctuations. It is also good to make sure that not too much rain or snow can penetrate joints or cracks. Roofing tiles still form, according to us, the best roof covering. The air inside the loft must be able to escape through the roof. If the roof is covered with corrugated sheets, a special ventilation should be installed. Avoid overpopulation. Preventive treatment against respiratory infections is useful. Besides administering anti-trichomonas preparations at regular intervals, the giving of antibiotics can suppress respiratory problems during the racing season. Paratyphoid, also known under the name salmonellosis, is a very dreaded pigeon disease. The Salmonella bacteria, very common in the pigeon world, is responsible for this terrible disease. What makes it sometimes difficult to identify paratyphoid is the fact that the disease manifests itself in various ways. A well-known kind of paratyphoid is the joint form. The paratyphoid germ attacks the joints. From here the typical name, wing disease. The wing hangs down and a swelling is clearly seen at the shoulder joint. Not only the wing, but also the joints of the leg can be attacked. A frequently occurring ailment is gastroenteritis, provoked by the Salmonella germ. This affection especially afflicts young pigeons. In a paratyphoid infection, The intestines are mostly the victims, but important internal organs, such as the liver and the kidney, can also be affected. In pigeons, loss of weight and exhaustion result with sometimes even death as a consequence. If the paratyphoid is chronic, typical eye abscesses are sometimes noticed. Often, the lofts are infected with paratyphoid without the presence of clear symptoms on the loft. In these cases, the salmonella germs are latent. The competition results are then mostly below average. It is also a fact that infected pigeons have a lower fertility and that breeding results are poor. The salmonella germ, the provoker of paratyphoid, is one of the few bacteria which can also be transmitted through the egg to the young. The assumption that paratyphoid is present should best be confirmed through a laboratory examination. What remains to be done in the salmonella infection? First and foremost, the seriously ill pigeons should be immediately removed. The rest of the pigeons are giving the medication Theraprim in their drinking water. Simultaneously, furoxene is put on the feedings. The treatment is prolonged for at least 14 days. After the treatment, all pigeons should be vaccinated. This is necessary to develop an immunity against the sickness and to limit the duration of the germ elimination. Streptococcosis, also called the muscular and winged disease, is a recently discovered and very important disease in racing pigeons. This disease has been established by the University of Ghent in 10% of the annually examined pigeons. This affection is therefore at least as important as the more known paratyphoid infections. The pathogen of streptococcosis is the bacteria Streptococcus bovis. This germ is normally present in the digestive system of a large number of pigeons. As long as the presence of the bacteria remains limited to the gastrointestinal system, the pigeons exhibit no symptoms. Symptoms only appear when the bacteria, under influence of stimulating factors such as overpopulation or bad sanitary conditions on the loft, enter the blood circulation. Some symptoms resemble very closely those of paratyphoid, so that it is difficult to distinguish both diseases. Typical for streptococcosis is the very sudden death of one or more pigeons without previous symptoms. Not being able to fly and limping are other indications, along with a bad appetite, loss of weight, production of green slimy or watery droppings, and bad competition performances. When the disease breaks out, it can attack pigeons of any age on the whole loft. In some cases, the disease limits itself to one or a few birds. When dissecting the affected pigeons, it would seem that large centers of extreme tissue deterioration in the breast muscle are the most typical injury. Besides these mortified zones in the breast muscle, one often notices inflammation injuries around the tendon of the inner breast muscle. It is especially due to this injury that the pigeons can fly no longer or that their wings are drooping. From there the name muscle and wing disease. Streptococci can also cause joint inflammation in the leg, whereby the pigeons begin limping. In severe cases, even internal organs such as the lungs, the liver, the kidneys and the spleen can also be affected. The diagnosis for streptococcosis can exclusively be confirmed by dissection. Examination of the droppings has no value because the germ can also be present in healthy pigeons. A treatment for streptococcosis involves the administration of an antibioticum. Penicillins are appropriate for this purpose. Furthermore, sanitary measures are very important. It has been demonstrated that grated floors are especially suitable to prevent a relapse. Protection of the pigeons by vaccination is for the moment still in the future. It is not until recently that a lot of attention was paid to the importance of the colibacteria as pathogen in pigeons. Coli is a bacteria which can cause diseases to a whole lot of animal species. Until now, it was an accepted fact that the colibacteria in the pigeon only had a meaning insofar as it was an accompanying infection to other affections such as adenovirosis. From recent studies at the University of Ghent, however, it appeared that colibacilli were established as sole pathogens in 12% of the pigeons which were examined there. The colibacteria has therefore a more important role as pathogen than was formerly believed. The germ is in fact normally present in the digestive tract of almost every healthy pigeon. Symptoms only become apparent when the germ gets the chance to force itself into the blood circulation. Vomiting, diarrhea, excessive drinking, loss of weight and limping are the symptoms of colibacillosis. Which elements contribute to the fact that the colibacteria have overgrown the intestinal system and have forced themselves into the blood circulation are not yet obvious. It has been known for quite a while now that intestinal damage caused by adenovirosis or hexamethiesis have as a consequence a multiplication of colibacilli. Also other factors, such as stress and a decrease in resistance, could in certain circumstances provoke a breakthrough for the colibacilli. Trimethoprim, an active element of theraprim, is for the treatment of colibacilli very effective. Once the treatment is launched, the symptoms disappear relatively fast. Next to bacteria and parasites, viruses are also often the cause of diseases in pigeons. Viruses are organisms which are much smaller than bacteria. Viruses, contrary to bacteria, cannot multiply without a host cell. Up to now, there is no real effective remedy against viruses. In combating viral diseases, the emphasis lies therefore more on preventing this infection through, among others, vaccination, loft hygiene, limiting contacts with unfamiliar, possibly infected pigeons, etc. The treatment emphasizes the prevention of the occurrence of complications. Young pigeon diarrhea is probably caused by a virus. Which virus is concerned is not yet completely known. It is generally accepted to be the adenovirus. Some researchers don't exclude the probability of the paramyxovirus. The symptoms of the young pigeon diarrhea is caused by the colibacteria, which consequent to the intestinal injury caused by the viruses gets the chance to reproduce massively. Young pigeon diarrhea, found almost exclusively in young pigeons, has cropped up quite frequently the last few years, and it is moreover very contagious. Large numbers of young pigeons become sick in a short period of time. Young pigeon diarrhea is primarily established in the spring from April to June. The affection causes little mortality, but the condition is lower just at the time of the early competitions. Contamination is mostly transmitted in the shipping baskets. In the first 4 to 5 days, the disease spreads to all the young pigeons on the loft. The disease begins in most cases with intense vomiting for a short length of time, followed by a typical watery yellowish-green diarrhea. The treatment of the young pigeon diarrhea is the same as that of colibacillosis. Pox also is caused by a virus. The disease is primarily transmitted by mosquitoes and blood lice, the reason why the affection mostly appears in the late summer and in the fall. The clinical symptoms are very typical. One can distinguish two sorts of diseases, the skin form and the internal form. The skin form is the most common. Here, warty injuries appear on the infected skin parts, around the beak, eyelids, feet, etc. When the eyelids are closed by the swelling, the birds will not eat anymore and will die. For most pigeons, however, the disease is not fatal. The injuries disappear spontaneously after about 3 weeks. Internal pox infections, also called diphtheria, are seldom established in pigeons. In this form, injuries appear in the mucous membrane of the beak, the throat, and the digestive tract. Once the pox virus has attacked, there is no effective remedy. One can, however, to avoid complications, act preventively. As such, one can disinfect the skin pox with a tincture of iodium and treat the affected eyes with an antibiotic ointment. The best solution is to inoculate annually all the youngsters when they are 6 weeks old. The inoculation can be administered simultaneously with the vaccination for paramyxo. For racing pigeons, the inoculation is carried out by the feather follicle inoculation at the foot, where a few plumes were plucked. The inoculation reaction should always be controlled. Normally the follicles are swollen after 8 to 10 days. It is presumed that most birds have built up sufficient immunity after one single inoculation. Besides vaccination, the control of insects on the loft can also play an important role in the prevention of a pox infection. Now and then, skin growths can be noticed on the pigeons. Pigeon fanciers call these small tumors, bloodworts. Scientific examination have demonstrated that these bloodworts were also caused by the pox virus. This virus is not exactly the same as the pox virus, but is a very close relative. When the infection is present on the loft, the number of pigeons affected can limit itself to one or to a few. These typical swellings sometimes disappear spontaneously after a few weeks. A recent but very well-known affection is the paramyxovirosis. Paramyxovirosis in racing pigeons is caused by a variant of the pseudo-wing pest virus. The paramyxovirus is for raging pigeons the most worldwide spread virus. The symptoms of paramyxo are caused on the one side by nervous disturbances and on the other side by kidney affection. Kidney affection in pigeons causes watery droppings and an increase in water intake. The watery droppings differ clearly from the soft feces accompanying an intestinal infection. One may distinguish a little pool of water around the droppings in paramyxo, while in diarrhea the whole droppings are watery. Nervous affections then again cause vibration of the wings, incoordination of the head motions, pecking next to the grains, turning neck and sometimes paralysis of the eyelids and limbs. Both symptoms can appear independently from each other. Nervous disturbances only show up in a small number of the affected pigeons. Moreover, they are much less frequent as of today than in the first outbursts of paramyxo. Momentarily, the disease is rather exteriorized by an indefinite symptom with watery droppings alone. That often makes diagnosis more difficult. Many a fancier thinks unjustly that intestinal disturbances lie at the base of this problem. It is, however, the kidney damage caused by the paramyxovirus which is responsible for the watery droppings. A remarkable fact is that in the last few years, more paramyxo cases were established. It is not excluded that the pigeons have a lower resistance due to, among others, the frequent use of cortisones or the improper use of them. Paramyxo can be prevented in a very efficient way, namely by annually inoculating the pigeons before the racing season. Adequate protection can only be acquired by a subcutaneous injection of a DET vaccine in the region of the neck. Vaccination is possible as early as the 6th week after birth. A stronger immunity is however obtained when the pigeons are a few weeks older. Very important is however that the young born later are also vaccinated. Paramyxo is especially active in the late summer. The reason for this is that many fanciers neglected to inoculate the last born pigeons. Living vaccines brought into the drinking water or directly into the nose and eyes give insufficient protection. It would be better not to use these anymore. Once the pigeons have been affected by the paramyxovirus, there is no remedy. Supportive measures, such as isolation of the sick birds and administering of electrolytes, can however be applied. This will limit the duration of the disease. Still, other viral affections can threaten the pigeons. More and more, the pigeon sport is pestered with a new syndrome, whereby the pigeons become seriously ill in a short period of time and then suddenly die. It is assumed that here a virus is concerned which has been present in the pigeons for quite a while and which only in periods of lesser resistance, such as for example due to the use of cortisone, will exhibit pathogenic characteristics. The disease is characterized by a very rapid course. In most cases, the fancier only notices a sudden mortality in his pigeons. The attentive fancier sometimes establishes that a few hours before dying, the pigeons vomit and produce watery droppings. Dissection will certify the diagnosis. Here, the typical swelling of the liver can be seen, and as such the name viral liver inflammation. The ailment usually disappears after 3 weeks or so, and there are no more deaths. Contrary to other viral affections, such as pox or paramyxo, there is no vaccination possibility for viral hepatitis. Following this summary of the various pigeon diseases with the respective treatment, we inform you, dear fancier, over the importance of the correct nutrition for your pigeon. Science and experience teach us that the standard grain mixes exhibit essential shortages, which must be supplemented so as to become a full nourishment. Large progress was recorded in this aspect by the development of extruded, easily digestible foods in pellet form, which in the first instance bring the percentage of proteins and energy to the required optimal level for each season. The benefit and use of vitamins is already well established in pigeon racing. Vitamins are essential for all living beings. For sure, for racing pigeons, of which high performances are expected, vitamins are of vital importance. An ordinary grain mix contains insufficient vitamins. A strong need for vitamins is established first of all in the breeding and in the racing season. The racing pigeon especially needs extra B vitamins and vitamins A, D and D. For racing pigeons, it is preferable to use the composed preparations in order to meet the specific requirements. Some fanciers often use preparations intended for man or for other animal species. This is not advisable due to the danger of under as well as overdoses. The administration of standard supporting vitamin preparations, such as Vitamix, is recommended during the breeding period, the molt, and following a treatment for coccidiosis, worms and ornithosis. Also, following inoculations against pox or paramyxovirosis, an extra vitamin boost is recommended. Vitamix can be given in the drinking water as well as on the food. Other vitamin preparations, such as Omniform, were especially developed for usage during the competitions. Omniform contains, next to the most important vitamins, also numerous amino acids and the muscular fortifier inositol. Scientific examination demonstrated that amino acids play an important role and that they increase the performance capacity of man and animal. Amino acids compose the building block for proteins. Proteins are among others used by the body for the production of muscular tissue and feathering. Regular usage of such products raises the condition curve. The pigeon acquires swollen and elastic muscles. The muscles, moreover, obtain a pink color. The feet become highly red, and on the wings appear oily stripes. The pigeon is now ready for competition. In pigeon racing, more and more importance is devoted to electrolytes. These products are already well established in the world of athletics and bicycle racing. But now, what are electrolytes and what is their function? Electrolytes are mineral salts, such as sodium, potassium, magnesium and calcium. They are substances which play an important role in the biological equilibrium and the water balance of the pigeon. Some electrolyte preparations, such as dextrotonic, also contain, as energy source, dextrose and fructose, and are therefore especially appropriate to prepare the pigeons for the competition. Such preparations should be given before the basketing. Other electrolyte preparations, such as Fortalit, were especially developed to accelerate the recuperation process after strenuous efforts. The use is as such especially recommended at arrival from a race. Because of its high percentage of calcium and of amino acids, Fortalit has also its purpose in the breeding period. By administering just before and during the breeding and during the upgrowth of the youngsters, a strong eggshell formation and an energetic crop milk is obtained. These will optimize the growth of the young. For diseases with high losses of liquid and salts, such as paramyxosis and intestinal infections, electrolytes have proved to be of great value. Fortalit decreases liquid loss and as such accelerates recuperation. More and more in pigeon racing, use is made of natural health products as complement to real medication. Think, for example, of the numerous pigeon teas. The last few years, the use of plant extracts with a specific activity has also been stimulated. These are especially oriented to promote and strengthen the natural balance and natural resistance of the body. A particularly interesting product is certainly Ikainichi extracts. High percentages of this extract are present in Orovital. Also present in Orovital is ginseng, another well-known plant extract. It is known that ginseng promotes to a large extent the capacity performances of man and animal. Orovital is especially served in the drinking water in the racing season and during the molt. An optimal functioning is obtained by simultaneously administering the preparation omniform. A good liver and kidney activity is for the racing pigeon of great importance. A preparation that supports both vital functions is Biocol. The preparation Biocol contains high percentages of methionine, choline, biotin and sorbitol. Biocol contains moreover an extra dosage B12, which assures an optimal fertility and a good plumage. Through this unique combination, Biocol is extremely important in the molting period as well as in the racing season. Finally, we would like to give you a few general yet valuable advices. Pigeons which are given medication or condition preparations via the drinking water should not be able to take a bath. One must give them as little chance as possible to drink water from elsewhere. The products of Pharma were so developed that the pigeons show no dislike for the drinking water wherein the medication is dissolved. The solutions should, however, be made afresh every day. The dosage of each product of the gamma, be it now medication, vitamins or plant extracts, was carefully and scientifically examined. Remember that the pigeons drink much lesser in the winter than in the summer, or when they are feeding the nestlings. It is thus a known fact that when serving Trichoplus in the wintertime, a double dosage should be given to reach the same effect. If the pigeons drink insufficiently, one can mix the medication and vitamins to some food which has been made sticky. For pigeons which are too sick to eat or drink the medication and vitamins out of the drinking fountain, one should bring in the products with the food directly in the crop. In this case, we speak of treatment of valuable pigeons affected with paramyxosis. This film was brought to you by Versele Lager. Our pigeons are athletes, and athletes have the right to an optimal medical guidance. Modern pigeon racing insists on a perfect health and a qualitative strong pigeon. To win is everyone's goal. Give them the chance. Keep them healthy. From Pharma. Lots of success.